Hi everybody. I'm really glad that we could get together today and talk about one of my favorite Bible stories. It's about a man named Joseph who had 12 brothers and a father named Jacob, and some good things happened to him and some bad things happened to him. So a lot has changed in the past month. Probably your life has changed. I know my life has changed. I went from going to work every day and taking my kids to their activities and my son being at college to us being all at home. So I'm sure the same thing has happened to you. And when change happens, sometimes it's hard to understand what God is planning or what he is trying to do in our lives. So we're going to be playing a game. We've been doing a lot of family things the last couple weeks. Yes, we have, Jen. So we are going to actually play a game. This game's called Kerplunk. And I don't know if anybody has this game at home, but basically what you have to do is take out the little sticks. And the goal is not to have any of the marbles fall. So you take your turn. And at the beginning, it's really easy. And things go pretty quickly, but then as you go on in the game, it get a little bit harder. And that's kind of what happened to Joseph in his life. So while we're playing this, I'm going to tell you the story about Joseph. So Jen, you get to go first. So you have to turn it when it's your turn. So the little opening is in your tray.
I've never done that before.
And then, yeah, because then the marbles come to you and you know they're yours. So the goal is you don't want to have any marbles. So Joseph was the son of Jacob, and he was Jacob's favorite son. Out of all 12 sons, Jacob loved him best. Jacob treated him better than the other sons. He gave him a beautiful gift of a rainbow-colored coat. Well, as you can imagine, Joseph's brothers were not very happy about that. They were jealous of Joseph. They hated Joseph even because their father loved him more and showed him more special treatment than he did for them. So they decided that the best thing to do would be to get rid of Joseph. Now, up to this point, Joseph's life was great. He had a father who loved him. He was happy. He didn't have any troubles in his life at all. But the one day that all changed. His brothers threw him in a pit. Oh, Jen. Threw him in a pit. They took his coat away, ripped it, and made it look like animals tore it. And they were going to leave him there to die in that pit. But instead, they decided that the better thing to do would be to sell him as a slave to a group of people called the Ishmaelites. So they sold him as a slave. A slave is somebody who has to work and they don't get paid for it and they're not treated very nicely. So they sold him as a slave. He went far, far, far away from home to a country called Egypt. And that's where he was, far from his family. He was a slave, and his father thought that he was dead. So that was his life. He went from a great life to a not so great life. I'm trying to decide which one isn't going to lose me marbles. So, do you think that would make Joseph decide that maybe God wasn't caring about him anymore or loving him anymore? I think it would be hard to keep thinking that God was loving us, but God was loving Joseph. And all the while, oh, it's getting harder. No, those aren't mine.
Oh, no.
All the while, God had a plan for Joseph. So while Joseph was in Egypt, he worked for several people, and eventually he landed in jail because of a misunderstanding with one of his employers. So he was in jail, and I think at that point was feeling very low. But then Pharaoh heard of Joseph and decided that Joseph could be helpful to him. And Pharaoh was the king of Egypt. So Pharaoh took Joseph and had him work for him. And eventually Joseph ended up being the second in command in Egypt. And he helped Egypt during a very difficult time. There wasn't a lot of food. and he helped Egypt make sure that they had enough food to last for them. And without him, that wouldn't have happened. So eventually, Joseph's brothers came to Egypt looking for food, and they found him. And Joseph forgave them, and his family ended up moving to Egypt and living with him. So Joseph went from great to not so great, back to great again. And the whole time, God was in control. God was in charge. God wanted to make sure that the plan that he had for Joseph was going to happen. He had special things for Joseph that maybe Joseph couldn't see when he was stuck in that pit or working as a slave. So when things get tough and things get difficult, you need to just keep in mind that God has a plan. God is in control. God will take care of you. There's lots of scary things that happen in our lives and lots of things that change, but if you face them knowing that God is with you, it makes things a lot easier. So even though this game was easy at the beginning, it got hard at the end. So God doesn't promise us that everything is going to be easy, but he does promise us that he will always be with us and always take care of us. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope that you're enjoying time with your family, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Let's say a prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for always being with us and always caring for us. Things happen in our world that are scary. Things change in our lives that we weren't expecting. But we always need to remember that you are in control and you have a plan for us. You have a plan for the good times and a plan for the bad times. And if we keep looking to you and looking for your guidance, you will be with us and help us end up being good in the end. Amen. See you guys.